Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we have been given another opportunity to meet on the air in the program Man and Nature. Before we continue with our discussion today, let us recap a bit on the topic that we touched on last week, which was geological hazard, landslide and disaster risk reduction. Our guest last week was Yang Bahagia Datuk Zakaria Muhammad, who is chairman of the Board of Geologists Malaysia. Among other things, Yang Bahagia Datuk Zakaria shared with us information regarding high elevation landslide hazards occurring in our country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, in this week's episode of Man and Nature, our focus will shift slightly to another form of hazard, which may not be a geological hazard. We will be discussing on the topic combating the rising food insecurity with technologist Dr. Pramila Tamunaidu, who is manager, Malaysia-Japan Advanced Research Centre, MJARC, at the University Technology Malaysia, or UTM. She is also attached to the Malaysia-Japan International Institute of Technology, MJIIT, at UTM. Our guest today is a researcher, educator, agrarian, and sociopreneur, specializing in transitioning organic solid waste into products, championing organic farming, circular bioeconomy, and sustainable development goals, concentrating in efforts towards zero hunger as well as zero waste. Technologist Dr. Pramila holds a PhD in energy science from Kyoto University, Japan. Welcome, Dr. Pramila, to the show.
Thank you, Doctor.
Nice to have you in the studio.
Nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Dr. Pramila, perhaps as an introduction,
Yes.
could you please explain to our listeners the rising food insecurity facing people worldwide?
Okay, Doctor. Before that, let me just explain to you what food insecurity is. Okay, when you talk about food insecurity, it means we lack the access to nutritious food.
Okay.
Nutritious food. So it can be, for example, rice, staple food rice for us. It could be wheat, it could be legumes, it could be vegetable, it could be proteins. Okay, when you talk about food insecurity is also a form of disaster in the making.
True.
Okay, so why it happens is because, we have been having climate change for the longest time, but it never really got to you that today we will have lack of food. It's happening everywhere in Malaysia, right? We didn't even have eggs.
True.
To be honest, the most basic thing, we couldn't even have eggs. So today we have all this unpredicted weather, extreme weathers. It destroys crops, it disrupts the supply food chain. But when did the wake-up call come? Pandemic. When pandemic started, we had lockdowns, we had closure of borders, we had economic downturns. And then what it made is not everybody had the leisure to work from home. Some people had no leisure at all, Doctor, no living. They do not have any economic, input that they could afford. So that, they could afford food. So there's economic inequality that goes to the food, a rising food insecurity. Additionally, Doctor, it's also the population growth. For example, we took 200,000 years to reach 1 billion people. Can you guess how long we took to reach 8 billion people last year? Can you just have a number in your mind?
I'm blank at the moment.
Just 2 generations,
Right.
Doctor.
So that
200
years.
220 years, we already reached 8 billion. So how far along till we reach 10, till we reach 15? So we are already at the point of time, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure. We have limited resources. There's arable land. We are converting a lot of land to commodities compared to food. And we have a lot of non-sustainable farming techniques, very old, very manual, and things like that. So food insecurity is the same across the world. Yeah, so this is mainly the main concerns about food insecurity in the world.
Interesting that you mentioned about the exponential growth in population. I think this is something that we don't really think about that much.
Correct.
And this is perhaps one of the cause of the increasing demand for food. And definitely, when we talk about the fulfilling the demands, we need to have sustainability.
Correct.
Now, Doctor, what are the important measures in the Global Food Security Index, and what is the current scenario in Malaysia?
Okay, Doctor, when we talk about Global Food Security Index, it's an index, okay? And every year, this index will evaluate a few countries. So we have about 113 countries that take part in this Global Food Security Index. So we have four important measures in this index. For example, the first thing is availability. Is it available to everyone, where consumers to purchase food? And it measures how vulnerable we are. In case if there's a price hike, can everybody afford it? And also do we have programs and policies that support the customers if there's sudden price hike? So is it available to all? For example, when we had no eggs, this is the current trend that is happening. We had no eggs. Even restaurants don't have, even in the, whatever we eat, nasi lemak, also we don't have an egg, Doctor. So is it already, like something that is not affordable anymore? Is it something that is not available anymore? When you come to that, then the second measure is actually affordability. All right? So when you measure affordability, you're actually measuring the agricultural production. Please don't have in mind that agriculture means everything is vegetable. Agriculture also means proteins, vegetables, shrimps, fish, everything is agriculture. And the on-farm capabilities. We have the risk of supply disruption. Why did we have that supply disruption? And what are the risks there? And we also have this, do we have the capacity nationally to disseminate the food to people, or do we have the capacity in research and development in efforts to expand this agriculture output? So that's the second measure. So first you available, then the affordable. Then you talk about safety and quality. That's what I mean. Food insecurity means, Doctor, nutritious food. Do we have access to safe and quality food? A lot of people think quantity is the best, but quality is actually the king. Are you going to be active? Are you going to stay healthy? That is the key to food insecurity. So when they do the safety and quality measures, they are actually looking at variety. They're looking at the nutritional quality, and they're also looking at nutritional quality across all kinds of community. Is everybody having the same quality? So that's the other measure. And the last measure is actually sustainability and adaptation. We are talking about whether we have the exposure to manage climate change. Are we susceptible to the risks of natural resources? And also how we adapt to these risks. So these are the four measures for Global Food Security Index. And when you talk about this index, it's like towards 100%. So towards 100%, it's better. But 50% is not the average. When we talk about 50% or 50% is good enough, no. 70% is the average. Anything below 70%, that means you are at risk.
Okay.
And do you know where we stand?
I have no idea, to be honest.
It's good to know.
Okay.
It's good to know because we are at 69.9.
Okay.
We are not at 70.
Just short of 0.1%.
Short of 0.1, that is the positive way of looking at it.
But that 0.1%, I'm sure is
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah, the impact is a lot. So we are at 69.9. So I gave you these four measures, right, Doctor? Of availability, affordability, safety and quality, and sustainability and adaptation. So availability, yes, we are doing not so well in availability. But affordability, yes, there's a lot of cheap food that we can get. But availability, no, we are not self-sufficient.
We import quite Quite a
Yes.
huge amount.
Correct. Before the pandemic, doctor, we were importing about 51 billion ringgit worth of food. In 1 year after the pandemic, we just went from 51 to 63 billion. That's alarming. That means we are not self-sufficient. If today somebody decides to close all the borders, we don't even have enough rice. And not enough rice can lead you to war. Staple food. Everybody eats their nasi lemak. Everybody wants nasi. Everybody wants rice. It's our staple food. We can go for war if we are not. We don't have our staple food. So we are not self-sufficient. That's the word. Affordability, yes, great. We are doing great. Quality and safety, thank God we are okay. We are okay at safety and quality. Okay, the last one that we are not doing very, very well at all is sustainability. Okay, sustainability, doctor, we are at about 50%. Okay, 50%, as I said, it's not the average. 50% is alarming already. All right, when you talk about alarming, our projected temperature is not looking very good. So what are we doing about it? Our water, not quantity, but quality is not looking very good. What are we doing about it? And the major issue here, which I think can solve a lot of things, is actually your political commitment. People who lead. This thing has to come top down. We cannot expect this from bottom up. People can start to change, but if there's no enforcement, I think there's a long way to go, and I don't know if we have the time. Yeah, there's a lot of political commitment. For example, I tell you, doctor, when we have this climate financial flow, for example, climate change, the country puts in some financial flow. Is agriculture included? We don't know. Yeah, is agriculture included in the climate change policy or, financial flow? When we talk about investment, are we investing in climate smart agriculture? That means you incorporate climate into the agriculture. You can't just do smart agriculture, but you forget climate. It has to be both. And what is our commitment towards managing this exposure and addressing agriculture-related climate change? This one, where are we at? And what is our national climate strategy, for example, which covers adaptations to agriculture? And are we putting enough promotions? Are we doing more R&D? Are we having more incentives, programs towards sustainable farming? So these are the things that Malaysia really has to look at. We are doing fine in availability. We are doing fine in affordability and quality, but not so well in availability and sustainability.
Much worse in sustainability.
Yeah, but more towards sustainability. Yeah, that's where we are totally lacking.
It's interesting that you actually mentioned about political will, because usually when there is political will, they will start with policies.
Correct.
But usually people will say that, okay, we usually have very nice policies, but when it comes to implementation, there's always something lacking.
Yeah.
So do you foresee challenges when it comes to food production, for example? You mentioned about the two measures that we need to look seriously at, availability and sustainability. So what are the challenges in food production?
Okay, for example, doctor, we were talking about when I said top down, you mentioned as well. Does it stop at policy? So between policy and implementation, who are these people?
Yeah.
We have to identify them. And whether this one is reaching the implementation part, we have to look through. Now we are stuck between these beautiful policies, but the people, by the time it comes to implementation, it gets diluted. When we are fighting climate change, when we talk about climate change, normally we will look at, the sky, it's hazy. But actually the problem is below your feet, doctor. It's actually at the soil. So challenges starts from soil infertility. That means, why don't we stop very chemical intensive farming? We put an end to it. Why can't the policy be so simple that we reduce or we put an end to very intensive chemical farming? This is possible, can be implemented. The policy does not have to be so beautiful that you cannot implement them, right? So you have this power to do it, okay? So we talked about climate change and we talked about this soil infertility. Then we talk about, we have this, some places we have water scarcity, but at some places we do have water. But what is the quality of the water? For example, doctor, a good quality of soil and water means it must be within a certain pH. Scientifically speaking, it must be a certain pH, like 5.5 to 6.5. But if you go and check to some of the rivers that actually, people use these rivers for paddy and all that, the pH is about 2.
Okay.
What are you expecting from a pH 2 water? Yield is just going to go. But people think there's not enough fertilizer, so they deposit more and more and more fertilizers. So where are we? Implementation part, that means the knowledge is not reaching there. And between the policy and the implementation, people are stuck. Why are people stuck? So this is some kind of a challenge. We talked about the population. We talked about the political and economic stability. But what I want to talk about, the challenge is actually, doctor, is the lack of infrastructure and technology.
Okay.
We have to go towards the science and technology. We have to go towards the development that is rapidly happening. Actually, you can say it's not reaching the people who are implementing, probably because the people who are implementing cannot afford that technology. They are very manual because nobody is reaching out to them. We are giving subsidies, but subsidies still going back to the old-fashioned techniques. If you're giving subsidy for a chemical fertilizer, are you solving the problem though? So you're not solving the problem. This is where it fails, at across all stakeholders, and also, what is the major thing that this food insecurity and the challenge of food production is, doctor? Is our habits. Food waste. We love to waste food, doctor. To be very honest, the highest amount of food waste I'm very sorry to say this, is produced during Ramadan.
Yes. We've been highlighting that for many years now.
For many years now. Why? I actually don't know, because we are supposed to be very moderate during Ramadan. Honestly, I also do it. But we do it a lot during Ramadan because we are tempted to buy everything that we see. And in Malaysia alone, doctor, a day we produce about 4,000 tons of edible food waste. What I mean by edible means, doctor, is the food can still be eaten.
Still good.
Still good. I'm not talking about the waste after cooking and all that, not those kind of, but edible food waste. And this 4,000 tons can feed 3 million people.
True.
So where is our food, We produce, we have this hard time producing, we have this difficult time importing, and everything is going to the dump. So habits is also a major challenge in food waste. It's not about the production only, the use as well. So I think you can see that, yes, climate change, you can always blame on a lot of things, but food waste, who are you going to blame? It's us. And when we have this practice, when we make it a norm, children who are watching, the newer generation, do you think they have this consideration? Do you think they will think? They will think it's okay.
Because everybody does it.
Everybody does it. It becomes a norm. So when doctor says, policy, implementation, it's not about production only. Implementation should go even to the user. Consumers. Even, one drop of rice or something, one particle of rice or something is actually very valuable. Someone's, blood, sweat, tears is in that rice.
True.
So I hope people who are listening actually consider a lot before dumping something.
Actually, just to share with you,
Yeah.
Doctor,
Yeah.
in our program Man and Nature,
Yeah.
especially last year,
Right.
we actually dedicated, I think, about 1 month worth of program
Yeah.
to talk about the need to stop food wastage, especially in the month of Ramadan.
Yes.
Our theme was Green Ramadan.
Right.
Because this is a problem that we acknowledge and something needs to be done about it. And also for your information, it came a few years back. We actually have a joint research with MJIIT and
Right.
Tsukuba University
Right.
on food wastage.
Yes.
And we actually went down to the ground to several housing areas to do intervention programs in order to inculcate awareness amongst the population to make sure that they change the habit,
Correct.
as you said.
Correct.
It's not easy, but from our experience, it is not impossible.
It's
This
not
is-
impossible.
This is something
You are right.
doable.
It's not impossible.
It's just a matter of getting people to buy in
Correct.
to change their habits.
Okay.
Okay, Doctor.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yes.
What are the strategies that we can implement to combat the rising food insecurity, especially in Malaysia?
Okay, Doctor. Since we were talking about the habits already, so probably we start from us.
Okay.
Yeah, the people itself. If we can change our habits, at least we would have not so much of the food wastage, and it goes to the people who need it. All right. But besides that, I think we need some major agriculture reforms. For example, what I mean by reforms is we have gazetted about 8 million hectares for agriculture. 8 million hectares for agriculture, and 75% is oil palm. And we have only 1 million hectare which shared across the agro-food. That means paddy, vegetable, fish, shrimp farming, everything within this 1 million. But we can't really eat oil palm, can we? I mean, I'm not against commodity. Commodity is commodity. That is our economy. We have to save our economy, but something should be done to increase the land usage towards agriculture, production of agriculture. When you talk about production of agriculture and land, then state leaders come in. You cannot expect federal and state not talking terms. You have to come together. Everybody is people, everybody is community. You have to start coming towards one vision. So it must be done across the country. Multiple stakeholders from the top to the bottom, engage everyone. You have to do reforms. And as we said, one is habit, one is reforms, and we go to the willingness to change. For example, Doctor, when we talk about that's this English adage that we use: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But we are still there. So if you're manual, if it's working, or we stay manual, we are comfortable. No, it has to change. It's already broken. It's not working. Please change. Please change. We cannot blame small farmers. Even big corporates, like I don't want to name them, they are not even looking into automation because it's expensive. They're still looking for manual labor from elsewhere. And they had a major problem in oil palm industry because there were no manual workers. But were they willing to change? Yeah, so you need to change the mindset, the change, right? And we have inadequate supporting infrastructure. So we have to be fast. We need innovative products to come in. We need strong policies. We need a credible organic farming mechanism. Let's go for organic farming mechanism. Product standards. We are already developed country, so we should go for higher. Why go for lower? Go for higher, go for better standards, go for control of prices and incentives. Why can't I afford to buy Musang King when it's grown here in Malaysia? Why can't I afford it? So why? Are we protecting, a certain market that people cannot afford it? And also this scenario is unlikely to change if we don't change. And of course, as I said, quantity versus quality. A lot of people will say, oh, my quantity is a lot. But quality-wise, are you good? If you're going to spend a little bit more on organic kind of farming, and if it's going to give you healthy food, why not? Let's come to that. And the last, as a researcher, I think I'm quite sad to see a lot of our innovations, R&D, and everything is still in the lab. Why can't it come to the market? Why can't it come to the shelf? What is our problem actually? Is someone looking into it? Or are we reaching people but we are not reaching the right people? Or is it not affordable? Let's look at some way or known initiative. Let's make some initiatives, programs, avenues, so that we can go together, we can move forward successfully. So this, I think, are the ways to combat the food insecurity.
I think you're right. There are a lot of things being done at the universities, but most of these innovations end up, at most as probably prototypes.
Correct.
And journal articles.
Correct.
They are not being commercialized. I think there's something to be done there.
Yeah.
On that note, since we're coming towards the end of our program,
Right.
do you have any concluding remarks to our discussion today?
Okay, Doctor. To be very honest, I think we are already at war against food insecurity. We are already there. If there's a wake-up call, I think we already got the wake-up call. So we should have answers already for a question that, are we ready? Yeah, you should have answers by now. If we are not having answers by now, then we do not have much time. We better start having some answers. All right. And is it somebody's job to do it? No. Everybody's job to do it. It's you, it's me, it's everyone's responsibility. As we said, it's not about the government, it's not about the implementer, it's about the consumer as well, right? And so time is ticking, and it's ticking really fast.
It's not on our side.
It's not on our side, to be very honest. Yeah. So let's come together. Let's come together. We eat every day, Doctor. Everybody needs food every day. Why don't we come together for a common cause? When we come together for sports. Why don't we come together for something that we do every day, that we need every day to survive, to combat this rising food insecurity? And it's for whom? It's for the people. It's for the planet. It's for prosperity. It's for peace. And it's for all these partnerships. Yeah, let's do that.
I think that's a good point that you have highlighted, something that we need to give our attention to. And not just that, we need to act upon it, not just say, but do.
Yes.
Which is sometimes quite a challenge in itself.
You're
Anyway, thank you, Dr. Pramila, for your insightful sharing on food insecurity. Definitely, I think it has been very interesting, and I'm sure our listeners have found our discussion today very beneficial. As is often the case, time is not on our side, as I mentioned earlier. But nonetheless, Alhamdulillah, your sharing in Man and Nature this week has been very informative. Before we end, I would like to quote a translation from verses 47 to 49 of Surah Yusuf in the Quran, which is translated to the effect that Yusuf said, "For 7 years shall you diligently sow as is your wont, and the harvest that you reap, you shall leave them in the ear, except a little, of which you shall eat. Then will come after that period 7 dreadful years, which will devour what you shall have laid in advance for them, all except a little which you shall have specially guarded. Then will come after that period a year in which the people will have abundant water, and in which they will press the harvest." So essentially, these verses from Surah Yusuf highlights the need for preparing towards food insecurity.
Yes.
And as you said correctly, that we need to have a change in our mindset.
Yeah.
Because definitely there has to be willingness to change.
Correct.
Otherwise, we'll be stuck with our old ways, and problem will not be solved, and things will get worse. So again, thank you, Dr. Pramila, for joining us in Man and Nature this week. And for our listeners, this program can be heard either on Radio IKIM, as well as on IKIM FM's Facebook. So please share and forward this discussion with everyone, so that the benefits from this discussion will be more widespread. Thank you again, Dr. Pramila. I hope to see you again in the future in perhaps another program. Until we meet again, inshallah, next week with another guest. Stay tuned to Radio Ikim, and we meet again Man in Nature same time next week. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.